Go.
Hey, this is Don McDowell, huntingfishing.com, Don McDowell Outdoor Radio, iHeart Media, and Fox Sports. This week's roll call, unfortunately, we have 11 fallen law enforcement officers that were killed in the line of duty to tell you about. We're going to start off with Deputy Sheriff Isaiah Cordero, Riverside County Sheriff's Department there in California. Age 32, his tour of duty was 8 years and 6 months. Deputy Cordero was shot and killed while making a traffic stop in his area. He was approaching a vehicle that he had stopped when the driver pulled out a gun, opened fire on him, fatally wounding him. A citizen who witnessed the shooting called 911 and rendered aid until other deputies arrived. Now, the subject fled the scene and led the officers on a vehicle pursuit that spanned multiple counties. The subject became disabled in his vehicle, and then he was shot and killed after he opened fire on the officers. So, Cordero had served with the Riverside County Sheriff's Department for 8.5 years, was assigned to a motor unit. He's survived by his parents and a stepbrother. Moving on to Florida, Corporal Ray Hamilton, Okaloosa Sheriff's Office. We don't have his age. His tour of duty was 5 years. The corporal was shot and killed during a barricade incident in the North Park Boulevard area in Wright. Deputies had responded to the apartment. The subject refused to exit the home, and the Okaloosa County Sheriff's Department Special Response Team responded to the scene. The man fired out a window, striking Corporal Hamilton. He was transported to the hospital, Destin Hospital, where he succumbed to his wounds several hours after he arrived. Hamilton had served with the Sheriff's Department for only 5 years. Then we move over to Virginia. Chief of Police Joe Carey, Broadneck Police Department in Virginia, 66 years old, tour of duty 40 years, very, very long time. He was struck and killed by a vehicle. He had activated his emergency lights and was removing a dead dog from the roadway when he was struck by an oncoming pickup truck. He was transported to a community hospital where he died shortly thereafter. Chief Carey had served in law enforcement for over 40 years, had previously retired from Charlotte County Sheriff's Department after serving there for 26 years. He's survived by his wife, 4 sons, granddaughter, and grandchildren. Wow. Unbelievable. Moving along to North Carolina, Reserve Deputy Brad and Deputy Sheriff Oscar. These guys were struck and killed by a vehicle while investigating a robbery. The deputies had completed a canine track. Deputy Blanaso was walking along the roadway when a passing vehicle struck him. The driver fled the scene. Was located a mile and a half from the scene. The subject was found to be intoxicated, taken into custody, and the deputy was transported by ambulance to the medical center where he died of his wounds there. So, unbelievable. He'd been with the Cumberland County Sheriff's Department for only 2 years, survived by his mother, father, siblings, and a fiancée. Detective Paul Daniel Newell, this is in Arkansas, Benton County Sheriff's Office, was 51 years old. Tour of duty, 24 years, and Detective Newell was killed in a motorcycle crash at the intersection of Walton Boulevard and South Metro Parkway while escorting vehicles delivering a wreath to a veteran's gravesite as part of Wreaths Across America. His motorcycle struck a curb, lost control, then collided with a tractor trailer that was being escorted. He succumbed to his injuries at the scene. He was a U.S. Army veteran, had served with the Benton County Sheriff's Office for 24 years, survived by his wife, 2 daughters, mother, father, 2 brothers, and a sister. Then we're moving on to Maryland. Deputy Sheriff Kerry McElroy, Garrett County Sheriff's Office. McElroy was killed in a vehicle crash. His department SUV struck the back of a tractor trailer before being struck by another vehicle. He was flown to the hospital where he died of his injuries the following morning. McElroy was a former U.S. Marine Corps veteran, survived by 2 young children. So then we move down to Tennessee. We have Reserve Deputy Brad Miller, Mower County Sheriff's Office in Tennessee, 68 years old. Tour was 19 years. Miller was killed in a vehicle crash while working a traffic detail at a construction zone. Another vehicle struck Miller's patrol car from behind, pushing it off the roadway. Miller had served with Mower County for 19 years, survived by wife, 2 children, 4 grandkids, and 1 grandchild. Moving on to Mississippi, we have Sergeant Stephen Robbins, Bay St. Louis Police Department. They're in Mississippi, 34 years old, tour 19 years. Robin was shot and killed. It looks like we had 2. I'll tell you about both of them. The other one was Brandon Esteroff, if I pronounce that right. He was 23 years old, and we don't know what his duty tour was. However, they were both shot and killed about 4:30 in the morning while conducting a welfare check on a woman and child sitting in a vehicle at a Motel 6 along the highway. They had been speaking to the woman for approximately 30 minutes before making a request for Child Protective Services. Moments later, the woman opened fire, fatally wounding both of the officers. One of the officers returned fire, but it's not known whether he shot the subject or if she committed suicide. So that's those 2 gentlemen. Moving down to Arkansas, Stuttgart Police Department, Sergeant Donald Scobie was shot and killed while pursuing a subject who fled from a traffic stop. Scobie had attempted to stop the subject's vehicle, but the man fled and a vehicle pursuit ensued. The man abandoned his vehicle and took off on foot, with Scobie chasing not far behind. He shot the sergeant during the foot pursuit. The subject barricaded himself in a home. He was killed during an exchange of gunfire with responding SWAT officers. Another officer had been wounded in the shootout. He had served with the Stuttgart Police Department for only 4 years. And let's see, finally, we have Chief of Police Justin McIntyre, Breckenridge-Bro Police Department in Pennsylvania. The chief was shot and killed near an intersection during a foot pursuit of a wanted subject. The man was wanted for probation violations involving weapons and had fled from the Pennsylvania State Police during a traffic stop the previous night. He fled on foot the following morning during a traffic stop, and the thing led to a shootout, and the chief was killed, and a Territorial Borough officer also was wounded. After the shooting, both officers, the man carjacked a vehicle, fled into Pittsburgh. He fled into a wooded area following a vehicle pursuit, then opened fire on police officers. He was shot and killed by police officer, returned fire. McIntyre had been sworn in as police chief at Breckenridge exactly 4 years earlier. So this is not good news. Continuing assault on police officers. So, as always, we extend our hearts, prayers, and heartfelt sympathies to these guys, their families, their units, and certainly the communities that they served in. Certainly a tragedy. I'm Don McDowell. Support the Thin Blue Line.